This video will offer a brief discussion of how to write a summary and analysis essay. So this will be Essay 3 for your class. Before we get started on the explanation, I want to note that there are a couple of files that you should download and have probably printed out or at least available on your computer as documents so that you can use them for references. The first is this one, the Summary and Analysis Essay Organization. It will look like this, and it will give a detailed discussion of how the essay will be organized. We'll go over that in just a moment. The other is this file that says Response to Kohler Presentation. So I wrote an example an example essay for this page so that you could see what a summary and analysis essay would look like. Now, my summary and analysis essay was in response to a video that I watched. So there will be a few differences between that essay and the essay that you will write, but they're pretty minor, and I'll point them out here in just a moment. So that file will look like this. Online class is not a silver bullet. So just go ahead and download those files so that you can have them ready for reference. Okay, so let's go over some of the requirements for this essay. You'll notice that I have up at the top a note about what the essay should have included in it. Your final draft must be 5 paragraphs total. A summary paragraph, which will be 1 paragraph long. The analysis section, which will be 3 or more paragraphs, depending on what you need. And a conclusion, which will be 1 paragraph. I should also note that you'll need a works cited page. There is an entirely different page that discusses all the MLA requirements for this essay, and it will look like this. MLA format for quotations and the works cited page, and it will be in the same week, the same section as the explanation for how to write summary and analysis. So let's skip back over here. Let's scroll down. Okay. So the first section that you're going to have is a summary. So instead of a regular introduction, you are going to, in 1 paragraph, describe the argument of the article that you're reading. So the very first sentence, what should the first sentence do? The very first sentence should mention the author's full name, the title of the article, in quotation marks, and the overall argument of that article. So let me pull up my example here. Let's scroll down, and I've underlined mine, but of course you do not have to underline your first sentence. In her TED presentation, What We're Learning from Online Classes, Daphne Kohler argues that providing free access to college-level classes online can improve student learning and revolutionize education. So you'll notice I mentioned the title of her presentation in quotation marks, and article titles should also be in quotation marks. I gave the author's full name. You will do the same. And I told the reader what her overall argument is. And that's the same thing that you need to do. I also want to note that after you mention the author's full name for the first time, you can just refer to him or her by last name only. So you'll see further down, I just call her Kohler. All right. And you'll see that I've listed that first sentence here, and I've also given a student example. So let's just discuss the student example. In his article, In the Charade, Let Athletes Major in Sports, David Parkman, Professor Emeritus of Educational Psychology at Florida State University, makes the argument that sports-focused students should be allowed to bypass choosing an academic major and focus solely on a sports major. So you'll notice the setup is exactly the same. The article title, the author's name, and the overall argument. And it's also good, I do want to note, that you tell me the credentials of the person that is making the argument. Okay, so what should the rest of the summary do? The rest of the summary is an objective description of the argument in your own words. Do not include your opinion in this section. Remember that your opinion belongs in the analysis section. So this section should only be a description of what the author is saying. Stick to the main points. Don't describe specific examples. Now, you might be asking, can I quote in the summary? You can, you're allowed to, but it's not required. Keep those quotes to a minimum. Remember that the main point of the summary is that you are learning to present someone else's ideas in your own words. And of course, since you're referencing the article itself, you're mentioning the author, so it's clear that you are telling me what the other person is saying and not, giving what you think about the article. Scroll down. Here's a little brief video on summary that you can use if you want. All right, after that first paragraph, what do? You have an analysis section. You will have 3 paragraphs of analysis. Okay, so the analysis section is where you do give your opinion. Now, the first section of the analysis, the first sentence, of the analysis section should be your thesis, which is your overall response to the argument. Tell me, what is your overall evaluation of the article's argument? Do you agree or disagree with what the author is proposing? Now, your thesis doesn't have to be just completely agree or completely disagree. You can be in the middle. You might agree with some of the points and disagree with others. And in fact, sometimes that makes your paper better. So, let's scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to pull up my example. Now, my summary was 2 paragraphs long in this example paper. So my analysis section doesn't come until the second page here. All right, so the organization is going to look a little bit different because the thesis is going to be the first sentence of your analysis section. For you, that will be paragraph 2. So here's an example of my thesis, and of course, like I said before, you don't have to underline yours. While the Coursera model does present a wonderful new way to educate more students, Color is too optimistic about its ability to match or exceed the traditional model. So my thesis is critical of Color. And I will tell you that writing a critical thesis is often easier because one of the main problems that I find students have is that they just want to say, oh, this is a good idea, and then they just repeat the entire argument of the article over again. And so mainly their entire essay is a summary instead of an analysis. So it might be easier for you to write your essay if you find something that you disagree with, or if you find something that you have mixed feelings about. So maybe you agree with some parts and disagree with others. So whatever it is that you're writing about, find some way to approach it where you aren't just rewriting the article over again for me. Okay, so while the first sentence of the analysis section is the thesis, the second sentence is your topic sentence here. So remember, your analysis paragraphs are going to explain the thesis. They're going to tell me why you agree or disagree. So why am I critical of Kohler's idea? So here's one reason. The students that would benefit most are those who are motivated, self-disciplined, and well-prepared. So my argument is that, while a free online courses might bring in more students, they're not necessarily going to educate the people who need a college education the most. The people who are going to benefit from this are the people who are already pretty well prepared and who are already benefiting from other models. Okay, now what about the rest of the paragraph? I give examples, explanations, and of course quotes. Now I do want to note that in my example I have timestamps. You will not need these timestamps because they are only necessary when you're referencing a point in a video. And for most of you, depending on what semester you're watching this, you will only be assigned articles to read, so no timestamp will be necessary. Now what about the rest of the paper? Let's scroll down. After that paragraph, I have another section where I talk about another point where I'm critical, and a third paragraph where I point out another problem that I had with the Kohler article. So you will do the same. Your analysis section will have 3 paragraphs. Okay? I'm going to scroll on down, and I've given some examples here. I've talked about the quotes. I do want to remind you again, of course, there's this section, MLA format for quotations and the works cited page. So I'm not going to go over how to do the quotations and works cited on this video because there is an extended explanation with lots of examples on this page. There are examples from every article that you're assigned. And if you scroll down, you'll see there's also an explanation of how to do the works cited page. There's a link to a video. There's a file that you can download with the works cited entries on that file, and I also have typed out the works cited entries. So your main job is to type out and correctly format the works cited entry for the article that you're using. And remember, you're only going to have one entry for this essay. So in the analysis section, you should have at least 2 quotes from the article itself. Now that will be the required minimum. You can do more than 2 if you want to, but you must have at least 2 quotes with correct lead-ins, quotation marks, and, if necessary, a citation in order to meet your minimum requirements for the essay. All right, let's scroll down a little bit. Conclusion paragraph is just going to be a normal conclusion. Remind me of your overall thesis and any last thoughts on the article. All right, and of course the works cited page. The works cited page will start on a separate page at the end of the essay. So if your essay ends on page 3, then your works cited page begins on page 4. Let's scroll down. You can see, like I said, I have a video and a works cited file. I also have a couple of other resources here that you can reference. I have a PDF that you can download, and I just scanned this from another textbook that I used to use that had a section on summary and analysis. And I also have an online reference, a website that I thought had a good explanation of summary and analysis. All right, so that is pretty much it. If you have any questions, please let me know.